somebody who is constantly growing.
He has done a lot, in my estimation, for the development of reggae music.
He had a very big concern about, especially about the genre of reggae music, making it to the peak of bigness by any means necessary.
What Stan has been able to do is see where those elements, that is, either the elements, a 3-chord checker, where it dominates, where it shouldn't, or to bring up the fact that music is a much wider terrain than some people want to have it fit.
I've been going to City College when I was 12 years old. At that time, Stan was like 25. Now Stan is about 58. I'm about 32. If you think about all this stuff, I think I've known Stan for about 15 years.
Stan was an on-air DJ at City College Radio, and he was actually the first person to start playing reggae music and Caribbean music on City College Radio.
When I was on the radio station at City College, Stan was very active in our Caribbean club. We had different clubs, and we had a Caribbean club, and Stan was very active in the Caribbean club. And I happened to be on a station there called WCCR, and I would do a lot of parties, and I guess they found out that I was from the Caribbean region, and Stan and his friends knew that I did all these parties, and we were running with at the time Puffy and Russell and all these people, frequented City College. A lot of them would go to school there, although some of them went to school there, but they partied and frequented City College at the time.
I started out to become a journalist. It was quite by accident, because my degree was in political science. I wanted to be a lawyer, and I ended up working at my college newspaper doing feature story, the paper at City College. But I covered I've always been in music from as a child, concerts. I started out as a photojournalist, shooting pictures and selling them to magazines. And then I started to realize that I could write about this stuff because I have a background in it. So I decided to start doing journalism courses at City College. Then I became an editor at the college newspaper called The Paper, political interest section, and then I somehow started working in reggae journalism. Being a Jamaican, you're always proud of your heritage and culture, and I mean, things Jamaicans seem to be in vogue, have been in vogue for like the last 10 years. And so when you get a chance to really go overseas and represent Jamaica, it's always an honor. And in 2005, I was asked to be the MC to travel with a bunch of musicians and artists to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for the 43rd Independence celebration. Now, I just thought I was going to a concert, to MC a concert, which I've done. I used to do the Get Smart showcase at SOBs with Philip Smart, and I've done a number of other concerts. So I thought, okay, I'm getting a chance to go to Cuba, and I'm getting a chance to MC a concert. When I arrived at the event organizer asked me to be the MC for the entire event. Now, you had the American ambassador, you had the Postmaster General of Jamaica, a government representative, and all of the top officials from the United States military there. That was fun. But what was interesting for me is as soon as I landed in Cuba and I got off and I started walking, you hear somebody say, "Yo, big up." And I'm like, what? I walked that entire place for 4 days. The only nationality that has any cultural symbols around Guantanamo Bay that were discernible to me were Jamaicans. The first thing you saw was the jerk hut. Okay? Then you heard the reggae music. And of course you hear the Jamaican bad with them too, which is like the yeah love. And you're walking in the place and you're like, am I in Jamaica? Because all the other nationalities that are there, I did not see any Italian restaurant or Polish or whatever, but you saw the Jamaican flag, You saw the Jamaican food, and the Jamaicans were there. There's a place called Gold Hill that has about 900 Jamaicans. And it's a housing complex. And I mean, when you get the tour through that place, it was just fantastic. The person who brought us there said to us, you Jamaicans have been here forever, and you're some of the proudest people. It is just my honor to associate with you folks, because you come here and you're so industrious, and we're proud of you. And that is one of the highlights. When we got here in the 70s, to be honest, it was not cool to be Jamaican, right? It was not cool. You were asked things like, do you live in mud huts? Do you live in trees? You called coconut, you were called monkey, all kinds of stuff. The kind of stuff that was insulting. And of course, needless to say, well, I never got into any fights, because I just basically saw that people were saying that as ignorant. I mean, I knew more about their culture than they knew about mine, and I was determined to have them respect it on equal terms. I did not, one of the transitions that a lot of young immigrant kids, teenage kids who come here go through, they don't do it now, but then was an identity, because being Caribbean was looked down upon. A lot of them sort of emulated what was there and rejected their culture. I was one of those people. My stance from I got here was simply this: I am going to learn about your culture and respect and appreciate, and you damn sure better gonna do the same for mine. Because I had no intention of transitioning to yours. And if you can't respect mine, we're gonna have a problem. But I thought that the best way to do that was to educate people, and that's where my journalism helped. One thing I learned about Jamaicans that I probably knew but didn't acknowledge, in my research for the Smithsonian, one Jamaican I interviewed said to me, the phrase I would use about us, and that people say all the time, is that if it can't be done, give it to a Jamaican.
He has so many achievements that his reputation kind of precedes it, you know what I mean? I mean, he's written for so many publications, you know, the Gleaner, the Star, the West Indian Times, Everybody's Magazine, all these different, you know, hats that he wears as far as writing for different people, but it's so much more than that.
Reggae was just rising in the 70s, was breaking out in the United States, and I kind of felt like I wanted to be part of being able to expose it to people, teach people about it, and have people get a sense of what our culture and our music was like.
I'm with the Gleaner newspaper. I'm the senior editor there, and he makes contribution in writing in terms of some of the stories. He has a series that I'm working on, or that we are working on, of women in reggae music, and that is the type of thing that I kind of know him for. That is, he likes to do things outside of the mainstream, if I may, where everybody else might be running after the latest star. That is, whether it's a Shaggy or a Sean Paul or now a Jah Cure, he will be looking at elements that need to be emphasized and that other people are, in a sense, not paying any attention to.
Pat McKay said to me recently, as a journalist, Pat McKay from Sirius Radio, she said, as a journalist, a lot of them acts, the Sean Pauls, the Damian Marleys and so forth, get mainstream press, but there are a lot of reggae acts that are really good that nobody pays attention to. And as a prominent journalist, maybe you need to, since Vibe and the rest of them are looking at the Stephen Marleys and the rest of them, why don't you look at the younger acts? And I thought about it and I said, you know what, that's a very good idea. So I've been focusing on people like Tanya Mullins out of Canada, Taurus Riley, that, you know, did some promotion on that.
I met Stan through Hapte Selassie and some other joint ventures in Brooklyn. For years I used to write for a journal that is published out of Brooklyn called Everybody's Magazine. Stan is also a contributor to Everybody's Magazine. And I met him because I, at one stage, wrote quite extensively on reggae music. And so we had that in common, that we were both people who were interested in both the politics, the culture, and the changing nature of reggae music. There are a number of people who have really written profoundly on the music, who try to keep up with the rapid changes taking place in the music. People like Garth White, there's some others, but I think Stan is one of the persons who has been writing consistently on reggae music and continues to be one of the leading journalists vis-a-vis reggae music.
I actually had my radio show on WNYU FM for quite a number of years. We've been there, and I wanted to increase the show listenership with some more ideas. So I listened to all the other shows that was on reggae shows, and nobody was really touching deeply into the entertainment like we were. And we went to all these concerts. I said, Stan, I'd love to invite you down to the station and you come on and just, give some your views, and interviews that tell us what's going on in the business.
For years, I'd been covering Japan Splash. All the musicians on the road would call me and simply tell me, I just left Osaka and we played before 74,000 people. Or Tony Green, when he was at Lloyd Parks and we the people band, Dennis just sold out a concert. Last night we just sold out a concert in Greece. So I was getting information from all over the world, and I wasn't seeing it in the Jamaican papers, and I wasn't hearing anybody. So when I was talking to people about the numbers, big numbers that reggae acts were pulling all over the world, people were looking at me strange. I said, you know what? This is a good idea, Philip's idea, to do this, because now I get a chance to now get to say it and say where it is happening. And that was the first, and again I'm thankful, the first Caribbean entertainment program on radio covering basically reggae music.
On WWRL, we did a short stint with Francine Chin invited me over there to be part of her team. The Saturday Afternoon Experience was the name of that show on 1600. And we also invited Stan. Stan came on. Most of the time he called in because he was out in the field, and the time of the day that we were on was usually a time of the day when a lot of events was happening, whether it be at a big concert event in August, starting from midday. He would have called from there or wherever he was with an artist interviewing for his magazines. He would call in and give us what's happening. So he was part of the whole team, a Get Smart crew, that's what we call it, and it lives on.
Philip gave me the opportunity to start on WNYU, which I did. It extended to me doing WPFW in Washington on Ann Walter's Caribbean Rhythm, and it also extended to me doing Glenn Simmons' Natural Mystic out of Atlanta. So simultaneously I was doing 3 entertainment reports across the country.
He was the producer of a series, in a sense it is still in effect, called the Reggae Roundtable, where we have discussed, as I said, the various elements, issues in reggae music, speaking to some very well-known reggae music artists, people like Sly and Robbie, Herbie Miller, who managed Peter Tosh.
Abdi Selassie at WBAI on Labrish asked me to come in and do a thing called do Reggae Roundtable. We had a discussion, him, myself, and Jeff Barnes, about the state of reggae music and the fact that we were hearing a lot of things in the industry, people talking, and we weren't sure where it was going. So I decided, okay, let me do a public affairs program on BAI. So I did it from 94 to 2005, just inviting industry professionals, talking about the development of the music, how it has progressed. But we also went back historically and went back into the different influences and forces that went into the music. We did a special piece with Dougie Mack, one of the original guys who went to Ethiopia. The government sent to Ethiopia in '64 to deal with repatriation. We actually had that and the influence of Rasta on the music.
When I got involved with opening a club called The Underground, we stayed in touch with each other, and I told him what my plans were, and he was very instrumental in encouraging me to get heavily into the Caribbean music industry, because I was very heavy into the hip hop and R&B music industry and pop culture. We had been doing hip hop. We did the Funhouse. We did Red Zone. We did the Bond National Casino. You know, we were doing all these clubs. So we had accessibility to the artists, to the places in Manhattan that the average Caribbean person really was not exposed to. But with the hip hop and R&B, they were there already.
Working at the WCCI, I remember Frankie Crocker, who was David's mentor, calling him up once and talking to him about how he broke into the urban market here. What Frankie simply did was to go to the clubs and what was being played in the clubs, simply brought it to BLS. And I mean, as they say, the rest is history. We know what Frankie Crocker was in the 80s to urban music. He controlled New York. So David and I sat down and talked about it, and David said, you know what? We need to bring reggae to Manhattan nightlife. So we started off at a place called, I remember it was Danceteria or Privatized, but it was a club. I ended up being the person playing music. Then I introduced him to Colin Lawrence from Force Records. And that's where we sort of got the underground. And the idea was get reggae in all the mainstream nightclubs, the happening nightclubs in Manhattan. And because he had a connection to do that, he was able to cross it, whereas a lot of Jamaicans were not, because they were not party to that. And that's how we decided to start. Then we sat down and decided to pair R&B acts with dancehall acts. And that became a feature. So by the time Rumors, Telephone Love, and all those tunes started to cross, David had played a major part in the promotion of that. I mean, I take nothing from him with that. He made a valiant effort to really get it in the nightclubs. And then he also brought the Caribbean artists into clubs that they normally would not have been invited in.
So Stan was very careful to make sure that I just didn't go ahead and try to make money, but I, thought about the culture and respected the culture. And also, I wanted to make sure and do that. So we want to do that in the reggae genre, in the soca genre, in the zouk genre, in the hip hop, in the R&B. It's everything that we did. So that brought about a great marriage there that allowed us to take things to the next level.
Two projects that came my way that I did not. One, I didn't have the power over, but the second one I should have. Melvin Van Peebles. I actually took a ride with him from New York to Washington for a Thanksgiving dinner in Washington. And we got to talking. He had just completed Posse and was about to do Panthers. And we sat together talking for the whole time. He gave me the script for Panthers. I read it. And he told me his entire life story about him and his son, Mario. And I turned to him and I said to him, why don't you write your autobiography? And he said to me, Stan, you are a writer. Why don't you do it? And I said, are you serious? And he said, yes. I said, how do I find you? He said, I'm a stockbroker. I'm in the book. The problem was I didn't have the confidence in myself that I could take on a project that major. I got a call in 2003 from Freddie McGregor. He said to me, I'm being pressured by major journalists to do my biography. I want you to do it. Knowing Jamaican artists the way I do, I didn't him seriously. Because Jamaican artists say a lot of things and they mean very few of it. So I didn't say anything. I went down to cover his Reggae Rocksteady concert in Florida. And when I did that, he asked me again. And he called me a third time. So what I did was I went out and I actually drafted a contract, got a lawyer friend of mine, she and I sat down and we did it. And I actually brought it to Freddie. And I said, if you're serious about doing a biography, I'll gladly write it. This time I knew I had the confidence because I knew him very well from years of interaction as a friend and as a journalist and artist. So that was easy. Moreover, when the Gleaner approached me about doing a center spread on him because Lolita Long, who was then editor at the time, said she wanted him to get a national award in Jamaica, which is the October awards that they give out. And she said, if we can do a feature on him and a supplement, we can contribute it and that might help. So she approached me and I did it. And once I did the center spread, which was really like about 3 or 4 pages in the Star, that's when he came to me and asked me to do it. But he never followed up. And those are the only 2 regrets I have. Financially, going to college. I got really sick at one point, had enlarged kidneys, ulcers by the time I was like 21, 22, from too much work, because I carried 18 credits, 2 jobs, a radio show, president of the vice president of Caribbean Club, president in International Studies Club. I was the day-to-day director of the International Studies program, which means I was the liaison to every other International Studies program that was in New York State, and I had to do that. I was a student representative on the student faculty committee in college, and while doing all of that, carrying 18 credits and doing 2 jobs. So it wasn't easy, but you had to do what you had to do, and that's what my doctor said to me, Mr. Smith, with all due respect, you're gonna have to cut back somewhere. And of course, you know, the thing in us in Jamaicans, we think if it can be done, that's the time we should start doing it. You know, that's the kind of thing that we have. And just the sickness, the illness just kind of put me in check.
Stan always wanted to take it to our next level in terms of he had wanted to see it come in bigger magazines, you know, not just himself. He was pushing to get his own writing into major magazines and pushing to get reggae into whatever major venues it would take to, you know, to make reggae get further into America. And the struggles that happened while he was trying to do that, you know, doors closed on you, people not calling back. You know, everybody goes through these struggles, and it's part of the development of the whole atmosphere of reggae music. We had to take those hits. It was like punches we had to absorb and still go through and still have a happy face.
There was a time when the job market was quite cruel to him. As you know, any black person in this country has to wrestle with the cruelties of the labor market in this country, in this city. And I know that he has never allowed that to beat him down. You know, he's like truth. You know, I think Martin Luther King once said, truth crushed to ground will rise again. Well, Stan is always rising again.
I remember my friends and I who went to college, we'd say, okay, we played by the rules. We did well, but we got our degrees. Now it's time to go out there and let's see what happens. And overqualified was a phrase that you heard so often that it was not funny. We heard that a lot. We would hear people just not give us jobs. We'd do our research before we go to the interview, and we know we have this. But the job never came, and we started to wonder, what did we do? You know, why did we go to college? Where did we go wrong? And momentarily you had those moments of self-doubt, yes. But ultimately what you did was you knew that you had to prevail.
I know that quite recently he had a severe automobile accident in Maryland. I mean, he suffered some very serious injuries. But Stan has bounced back from that. And I think that is a special quality about him. His resiliency, his inner fortitude, and his capacity to always see the brighter side of life. Stan is always very much cognizant that the sun will rise tomorrow morning.
Stan and myself are members of an association called Research Committee of Jamaica. Research Committee of Jamaica was formed about 15 years ago, and it's an association of about 10 members, and what we do is we try to lend assistance to schools in Jamaica. In particular, we assisted Trenchtown Comprehensive High School, and then we have also moved into an area of lending some support, intervention to the educational system in Jamaica.
Yes, I met with Will Rogers, who is the vice president of one of the vice presidents at Air Jamaica, and I said I wanted to do it. Of course, his first question on looking at my resume was to say to me, why would somebody with your background want to do this? And I said, Mr. Rogers, simply because I just wanted to connect to my community. And it turned out to be a very great experience.
As manager for the Community and Special Market Sales Department, I appointed him as Air Jamaica's community representative to represent Air Jamaica at various events that are held. And he did a fantastic job. He was very professional. He was very articulate. He showed initiative. His main objective was to represent Air Jamaica at these events and also to report on any marketing intelligence that he thought was necessary for me to know.
I was recommended as a student to be a part of a project that the Smithsonian was running. I was one of the researchers on Jamaicans in North America and the way our culture was taking over, how we had burgeoned into popular culture. And the Smithsonian Commission, the Smithsonian Folklife Division commissioned a study. And I was one of the researchers who wrote a report for that. As a publicist, to be honest, I ended up doing the Dennis Brown Memorial Committee for about 3 years, which I gave up in 2005 as a publicist, which is an organization dedicated to honoring Dennis Brown's name and giving scholarships and so forth. Also, I am also one of the people who write. I've been writing for the last 7 years, talking to Freddie McGregor about this, working with him on this, to try to get Dennis Brown some national award in Jamaica for his contribution to music. So I've written several articles that can be found online.
If you have Stan in your corner, you're good.
Music in the Caribbean, especially in Jamaica, is so popular because there were a lot of people like Stan that cared about it and pushed it.
One thing we appreciate those kinds of efforts, and it's hard.
Stan, the man.
Thank you.